What I've really appreciated about the symposium is the ability to see how the global north is grappling with exactly the same problems that we're grappling with in some of the most resource-deprived contexts in the world, in Africa. Everybody's trying to work out this transition from the legacy media into the digital age and how to make that sustainable. If not profitable, certainly sustainable so that you break even. Hi, my name is Harry Dugmore. I'm the MTN Chair of Media and Mobile Communications at the Rhodes Journalism School in South Africa, Grahamstown, South Africa. And I'm here in Austin for the 11th Online Journalism Symposium, specifically to talk about our Knight News Foundation News Challenge grant winner, a project called Indaba Ziyafika. And I've been here to present on what we're doing with a small community newspaper to take it into the 21st century. The project that I coordinate and run in Grahamstown is focused very strongly on helping small community newspapers in South Africa and in Africa get the technology they need to participate in a more digital age. So there are lots of legacy papers. Some of them are very, very small and tiny, and many of them don't even have the basics that one needs to be digital, such as a workflow or editing suite. People are editing their documents on Microsoft Word. They're often saving them on a flash drive. Some of them are even saving them on floppy disks, stiffy disks, I think they used to be called. And they will walk these flash drives or these stiffy disks over to the editor's desk, and we really feel that you can't, on that basis, do a great website. You need a local area network, and you need software that's going to allow you to do the editing. So we went to the Knight News Foundation and we said a lot of African papers want to particularly take advantage of mobile phones. Mobile phones have grown very, very fast in Africa. People have got mobiles, and SMS, short message service, I think it's called texting here in the United States, is a very, very popular form of communication, as is instant messaging. So how do you take someone who's just running a newspaper and you give them the ability to also talk to their audience through SMS and through instant message, and in fact start turning the audience not just into an audience, but starting to broaden that conversation, starting to get content from the audience, so people can send you an SMS back, you can get it in a digital form, you don't have to transcribe it from your own phone, you can actually get it on your screen, and you can then treat it as content, SMSs, photographs, etc. So that's what the project's all about. It's to fill a very big digital hole in Africa, and we're trying to do that. I think in the old days, the barrier to entry, if you wanted to start a newspaper, was the cost of printing, or even the cost of buying your own printing press. And it meant that only the elites could do that, and therefore they were able to control the flow of news and information to their own purposes, to keep themselves essentially in power. Nowadays, there's a different barrier to entry, and it's not the barrier to entry if you want to do media. You can start a blog, you can start an online newsletter, you can do all sorts of interesting things digitally online, as so many people up and down Africa have done. The barrier to entry, or the barrier to audiences now, is the very high cost of broadband, and even the high cost of using the internet on your cell phone. So most of Africa, less than 90%, less than 10% of Africa have any access to the internet over a line. 90% don't. In fact, it's closer to about 94% of Africans don't have access to the internet online, on a fixed line, on what we call broadband, or even dial-up. Dial-up is very scarce as well. The old-fashioned dial-up modem is expensive. So people now move into their phones. So everyone's getting phones, but using data, using the internet is really expensive. So where we come along with Nika is we say, there's two things you can do on the phones which are really cheap. The one is SMS. In some countries it's really cheap, but it's still a cost, 6-7 US cents for an SMS. But much cheaper is instant message. So you now, with very little money, you can take Nika, one computer, a SIM card and a modem, and you can now start a really powerful news and information site just using instant message. You can do your normal journalism, and you can do citizen journalism, you can combine it all. But the way you get it out to your audience is you don't need a really expensive website with flashy animation, flash animation and flashy animation. You can just do it by sending people very short messages and menus of stories, and they just send you a number back and say, oh, that story number 3 looks really cool. I want to hear about what the mayor said at the budget meeting this morning. They send you back number 3, and you send them a whole big 1,000-word story on instant messages, and for both parties it's cost basically less than a cent each. That's what Nika can do, and that's the niche that we're trying to fill. I mean, when we look into the future, part of the challenge for us is what I call this techno-social flux that we're in. It's very fast moving on 2 spheres. One is that phones are getting faster and smarter. 2 is that sometime soon prices are going to start to fall to the level where people can really afford to go to the real mobile web. They don't have to go to the kind of pared down sites that I'm talking about and the instant messaging sites that I'm talking about. I think instant messaging will always be popular, but it'll be a sort of an add-on like it is now. Google Talk, for example. People use Gmail, they use Google Docs, and while they're online doing that, they just happen to use Gtalk or Yahoo Messenger or AOL Messenger, or the most popular one in Africa other than Mixit is in fact Facebook instant messaging. When you're on Facebook, whoever else is on Facebook at the same time from your list of friends, you can see and you can have an IM conversation with them. So what we see happening, I guess if it's looking 5 or 10 years, is a massive reduction in the costs of going online, both from a computer and from a cell phone, and a massive increase in the smartness of the phones. So Apple iPhone-like phones are going to be everywhere in Africa in 5 years' time. You won't have phones that can't connect at all to the internet. And also it just won't be so expensive. So we have to evolve Nika quite rapidly to sort of do what it can do now with the sort of phone base we've got, the 500 million phones that we've got in Africa. Very few of those are iPhones. So we have to cater for that audience, and the costs are, people can't believe in the developed world, in the global north, they can't believe what an African has to pay to make a call on a cell phone. It's like completely crazy, both in absolute terms compared to the global north, and in relative terms to your own earnings, to your own basket of good. If people are earning $2-3 a day, and you're telling me that to speak on the phone for 1 minute is going to cost you 10-20 US cents, you can see why people don't spend a lot of time on their cell phones. But that's going to change, and in 10 years' time, Nika's going to have to be able to, it's going to be the sort of thing where there's apps and iPod apps and iPhone apps and iPad apps and BlackBerry apps. We're going towards that kind of app-driven world, and that's probably where we're going to go in Africa too. So I've loved the fact that we've been sitting in this conference with the most high-powered speakers, legends of the United States, at least the United States industry, legendary editors, amazing and famous non-profits who we've read about, and we now get to meet them, all giving top-notch presentations. The San Diego news, the stuff that's happening here in Texas, the Tribune, the amazing stuff that's happening in Chicago, the presentations on the first day, Jim and John Patton and people like that. They're so informative for us because we are both facing identical challenges. So that's been the really big deal for me. We've got something to say that I think people could find useful because we've got some unique approaches and angles, but equally so, hearing about, particularly today, public affairs journalism, civic journalism, reconnecting ordinary people to power, hearing about how in Texas the young people aren't voting and they're not reading about civics. Wow, in Grandstown the young people are not voting and they don't care about local government, and yet they're going to run this government in 10 or 15 years' time, and they've never voted. So we are just absolutely amazed at the quality of the speakers here and how the issues hook up to what we're doing. Austin's a great town. I've really enjoyed myself. Had the ribs last night on Rosenthal's suggestion at the Rib Shack or some cool place a long way from here. Yeah, loving it. Thank you.